So, I'd like to talk this morning a little bit more about New Year's resolutions and goals and intentions. And was very touched by the discussion that David Chernikoff started yesterday, holding these two very essential components of being and becoming. And they relate essentially to how we are right now, but also to the direction that we're headed in. We live in both worlds, and in this Western culture, it's kind of a world of acquiring, of getting, of goals. And sometimes a lot of us, that's all we do is set goals. And if that is all we do, we're essentially strengthening the habit of wanting something that's not now, being in the future, making an A on the test, getting $1 million or a better relationship or a better job or something, a win-lose paradigm that often carries very much an image of perfection. So it's very difficult for us to not always focus on the goal because we are in an achievement-oriented culture. So this translates to our meditation practice, and the goal becomes the goal of getting enlightened. And usually that comes with some notion of fireworks or some peak experience that we'll never come down from. It's going to solve all our problems. And I recently heard a teacher say something I really liked. It was that enlightenment has less to do when with the high states of our that we've achieved, and more to do with how we've learned to navigate the low states and the difficulties in our lives. So intention is not at all about achieving. It's more realigning with some direction, more like enlightenment might be a goal, but intention might be to be more present. And intention is like a direction. It's like setting our sails. And this poem that I like a whole lot from Heller Wilcox, I've read a number of times, just a few lines of it. One ship sails east and the other sails west with the same winds that blow. 'Tis the set of our sails and not the gale that determines the way they go. So we can reset our sails again and again, and we can set intentions, say, to change some particularly undesirable behavior, something that causes us suffering. And we can do it, but the time it takes to change has to do with the strength of our intention, the strength of the conditioning of the habit, of the behavior, and our ability to tolerate and even bring compassion to our failures. So with this kind of change, it's actually a 3-step process. The first step is to set the intention. The second step is to screw up. And the third step is to reset the intention. Step number 2 is not a mistake. It's a part of the process, and it is going to happen. So if we set our intention to be more accepting, less critical, and that has not been our conditioning or our habit, or, this whole lifetime, maybe 100,000 lifetimes, we've been critical, and our mother was critical, and our grandfather was critical, and their parents were critical, and it goes all the way back to the time of Moses. It's probably going to take us a little while to change. Maybe step number 2 is going to happen a lot. Maybe 1,000 times a day for the first 10 years. But we can think bigger than that. We can think in terms of lifetimes. And we may have to tolerate making the same mistakes and have to readjust again and again and again. And it can be a very humbling process, but we can do it moment by moment. Each moment conditions the next moment. And we just practice. So about 4 or 5 years ago, there was this video that went around the internet, and it was from a very, very wise teacher. And it was just a 2-minute clip. So I'm going to, if I can figure out how to do it, I'm going to share it with you, and we'll just listen to it for a moment.
What do you practice? Because what you practice, you will get good at. What do you practice? Do you practice joy in your life? Do you practice peace in your life? Do you practice happiness in your life? Or do you practice a lot of complaining? Because if you complain, you will get very good at it. And you will get so good at it that you will find fault with everything. Even when there's no fault that a layman cannot see, you, being an expert, will see it. What do you practice? Do you practice anger? Because if you practice anger, you will get very good at it. And you will get so good at it that the most trivial you'll think, trivial thing, will make you angry. Like sitting in an airplane and watching the sea across from you somehow looks better than the one you've been given. And that is so unfair of the airlines. What do you practice? Do you practice being worried? Because if you practice being worried, you will get very good at it. And you will get so good at it that everything will worry you, including the buffalo you don't have. So I propose, if this is true that it's a question of practice, then I propose you practice joy.
I will share the link for that. It was a wonderful recording. So I am happy to show it. Finding what our intention is and what we're practicing requires that we stop. We listen, we know what's going on, and we pay attention, and we realign with the space that we are. Because there's something in you that's just you. It doesn't have to do with any teaching or any ideas or any religion or anything that you've ever learned at all. It doesn't have to do with your mind. It doesn't have to do with your story. It doesn't even have a label. It's actually before label, pre-verbal. And we align with that. And if that's too elusive, it might work better in just setting an intention every day after reflecting on the reality of your own death, which is true. It's just, it takes us immediately and automatically to knowing what's important. So intention changes all the time. It's always different. Sometimes may my heart be open to my own suffering and to the suffering of others. It might be to open to and really realize the preciousness of this life. It's truly precious. It's truly finite. Sometimes it's to meet the challenges that we're presented with. Sometimes it's to find stillness inside, peace, and love. And sometimes it's to benefit all beings, everyone that I encounter. So we set our intention, we set our sails, we realign, we align with the truth, with what's real for each one of us. Okay, so I'd like to end this morning with a quote from another very wise being called Dr. Seuss. And he says, "You have brains in your head and feet in your shoes. Now direct yourself wherever you choose."